In case you missed it, Angler's Choice just had their open house at Martinsville and at Lexington these past couple weekends, and all anyone could talk about was live scope fishing. And I myself have been on this bandwagon for a pretty good while now. I've caught several great bags off my Lowrance Active Target, which is just like live scope. Garmin has their version, Lowrance has their version, and I've got a team partner that fishes with the Garmin Live Scope, and I can tell you right now, they're both really great systems and they can get the job done for looking at fish and getting them to bite. And at the shows, they were a lot of pros talking about different tricks and different little things they've learned, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do right here, is tell you some of the tricks that I've learned on how to get those fish to bite that you can see with that forward-facing sonar. So, I have found that a lot of the fish I've been catching, you still have to think about the fishery you're fishing and all those fish pressured or not, just like any other fishery, just like any day of fishing. You know, you normally go to a body of water and you think, is this a tournament body of water that has tournaments on it every Tuesday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday? If it's got a lot of pressure, you know those fish are pressured. And what I have found with those bodies of water is that you want to keep that in mind and try to trigger those fish with less aggressive baits. Some of the baits I like to throw when they're really pressured is the new Missile Spunk Shad. I just caught 33 pounds worth of fish last Thursday. Super excited about that. Was my best 5 fish day I ever had, but I caught way more than 5 fish. And the Spunk Shad being so simple with the straight tail, no kicking action, it is very, very finessey for those fish. You put it right in front of their face and they are going to chomp down on it. And it was very few fish that day that I saw when I was looking with my forward-facing sonar that I could throw to and drift it down right in front of their face, and they didn't come up and suck that in. That frosted purple is a great shad imitating color. Anytime you catch a shad, especially this time of year, the winter time, those fish have that natural pearlish color. The shad have those pearlish color to their bodies, and that frosted purple does a great job mimicking that. Another bait that I actually like to go to when I feel like the fish maybe are not quite as pressured as the straight tail of the Spunk Shad is the Shockwave. And the Shockwave has the little tail that does a soft kick, and versus your swim baits, your big mag drafts and your Kitex and your baits that have a lot of kick and a lot of pulsing action to them, the Shockwave doesn't have that. It's a little less intimidating to the fish, and I've had a lot of great days with this as well. Fishalicious is my all-time favorite color, but also they make it in a frosted purple. 2 amazing colors to use for that presentation. But keep it really simple. Have a variety of different size jig heads when you are looking for, you're basically throwing these like a Demiki. You're throwing it right in front of that fish's face, letting it fall down right in front of them and working it up. And some days you can see how the fish are reacting to your lures, because that's the beauty of the forward-facing sonar, is the fish will tell you how they're reacting. A lot of times, if they're super aggressive, you'll throw that lure out there, you'll see it hit in your beam, and you'll see that fish react really quickly. Like he'll be 5, 10, 15 feet away from the lure, and he will come up. And that's when you know that you can start throwing something with a little more kick, like the Shockwave, and you don't have to stick with the finessier stuff like the Spunk Shad. And then vice versa. If you know you made a great cast and you see that lure falling down in front of that fish's face, and it gets within, feet of him, and they don't seem to react much at all, that's when the new Spunk Shad has really been a key for me, is that this bait, I can let it drift right in front of their face, and it's the most subtle movement. They just come up and suck it in. And that has been a huge game changer for those fish that are less active. Having that straight tail, no kicking. I mean, I'm sure these fish in the pressured lakes are seeing a lot of stuff kicking right in front of their face, and they get caught doing that a couple times. They start realizing that's not what they want to bite. So check out both of these as far as great tools to put on that jig head, but the jig head is just as important as the soft plastics you put on it. And what I mean by that is, I was talking about a second ago, you want different sizes. I like to have a variety from 1/8 ounce down to 1/2 ounce, and I will change what size I'm using depending on the fish, as far as what depth they want to be in, as far as the aggressiveness of them, as far as the watercolor. Those things make a big difference. So if the fish, let me give you an example. If the fish is really deep, let's say 30, 40, 50 foot deep, you're gonna want something to get down on that fish quickly, because those fish are moving. A lot of the times when you're looking at them with forward-facing sonar, those fish are constantly moving. And if you don't get down to them, especially when they're super deep, you're gonna have to really lead them. Like, you know that you can tell by the tail on the forward-facing sonar they're going away from you. You're gonna have to cast way past them to make it down to that depth and be at their strike zone at the same time. So heavier jig heads like a 3/8 and a 1/2 can get the job done better. But I've also found that if you can get away with lighter, you can do better, because lighter allows you to not have that natural pendulum where that lure wants to drift back to you. You have less of that. So you're able to keep it right above their head and keep it in the strike zone longer the lighter you go. So just keep that in mind with the sizes, that you want to try to get a happy medium there. You want to have heavy enough to get to them no matter what depth they're at, but you also want to keep it as light as possible to keep it in their face. And then as far as when I mean by activity, that's another reason that you might want to change your sizes, because if the fish are very active, if like I said, the lure hits the water and that fish runs up like a bolt of lightning to get your lure, you might want to go with a lighter so that you can make less splash and just have that fish kind of get surprised by it. Because if they're really active, you can surprise them and then you get even more of an aggressive bite. But at the same time, you might want to go with heavier, so that, like, for example, Clark's Hill, I just went and fished not too long ago before the cutoff for my invitational, and it's full of spotted bass. So those spotted bass were super aggressive, super fast. If you threw anything within 15 feet of them, they were gonna run and investigate it. And I found that heavier baits worked better because I could keep the speed up. And what I mean by that is I could keep it high, but keep the speed when it was coming to me in that pendulum. I could keep it faster. So just keep that in mind. Every day is different. All the conditions can be different as far as, you know, the aggressiveness of the fish, the depth of the fish, the watercolor you're fishing. So just keep that in mind, that you want to have a huge variety of those jig heads, and then keep your plastics simple. You want something that's very, very subtle, like a straight tail spunk shad. That way, if you get in that pressured fish situation, this right here will definitely, it'll put them in the boat. And then you want that boot tail Shockwave. If the fish are a little more aggressive, they sometimes can find this, and that little thumping tracks them a little bit better. So just keep that in mind. Plastics, keep it simple. Jig heads, keep a variety. Pretty simple. As far as the actual setup goes for your forward-facing sonar, run your contrast high. You want your contrast high because you don't want to miss that fish. You want to see that fish. If you're running 100, 120, 140 feet out there with your beam, you want to see that fish as far as you can out there. And what that does, it allows you to make a game plan earlier. if you see it out there and it's, say you see it at 100 feet and you really can't cast that accurately and that good at 100 feet. With that contrast high, it just allows you to start strategizing, okay, am I going to start chasing this fish? Okay, the tail is on the back side of the image, so he's coming towards me. Let me slow down some. You can start strategizing how you're going to target that fish a lot better. So contrast high on your unit allows you to see them a lot easier, and keep your bait simple and you will catch a lot more fish with the forward facing sonar.